Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the wonderful audience joining us from different parts of the globe. The Test Automation Best Practices webinar was launched in July this year with 2 successful segments highlighting the value of democratizing test automation. You will be able to access these amazing sessions using the link shared in the chat. After 2 successful sessions, today we welcome you to the 3rd session of our highly anticipated webinar, Redefining Your Testing Strategy with Practical Automation, which aims at helping you scale up faster and collaborate better without compromising on release quality. In this panel discussion, we have a very exciting, knowledgeable, and seasoned guest, Amit Bansal, Senior Engineering Manager from Walmart Global, and Santiago Sanchez, Senior Test Automation Engineer from FI. Welcome, Amit and Santiago. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and your experience in the industry? Over to you, Amit.
Yeah, thanks, Afreen. So, hey everyone. So, my name is Amit Bansal. Overall, I have 15 plus years of industry experience, and right now I'm working with Walmart Global Tech for last 2 years as a senior manager quality engineering. Before joining Walmart, I worked with a couple of more product companies and worked in different domains like e-commerce, HRMS solution, and IoT was my last stint with one of the startup. So currently, I am working in Walmart on another like HRMS kind of solution, which is for in-house kind of application. It's pretty much about me on personal front. I live in Bangalore along with my wife and then a very naughty 11-year-old son. On my free time, I like to travel and binge watch some thrillers. Thank you.
Nice, very nice. Santiago?
Thanks, Afreen. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Santiago Sanchez. I've been working as an automation engineer for over 10 years now. Been working at FI for close to 3 years. Will be complete in February. And yeah, I've been also participating in different industries and different fronts, such as banking, points of sales, insurances, direct sales, automation reporting, from Excels to web-based reports and all. And yes, on a personal front as well, I live here in Mexico, in the city of Guadalajara, and along with my wife, and we like to travel and get to know new places. And also, I enjoy playing sports.
Awesome. We are really excited to host both of you in this session. I'm Afreen Ahmed, and I will be your host and moderator for this discussion. I have been associated with BrowserStack for a year now. I have a decade of experience as an automation engineer with primary focus on quality and deliveries at ease. With that, let me quickly go over the housekeeping items to make this webinar a smooth sailing ship. Today's session will run for 60 minutes. All participants will be on mute to enable speakers to present without interruptions. We have a dedicated 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. Please use our Zoom Q&A window to send in your questions during the session. The session is being recorded, and all the attendees will be able to access the recording. In today's webinar, we'll embark on a comprehensive journey through the world of test automation strategy. We'll start by understanding what a test automation strategy truly entails and move on to explore how to build an effective one. Along the way, we'll dwell into the alignment of agile principles with testing, efficient test case management, the selection of suitable automation tools and frameworks, strategies to overcome implementation challenges, and crucially, measuring the return on investment and the impact of automation. Before we dive into the topic, let's set the stage. Let us first understand what a test automation strategy means. Amit, could you please kick us off by explaining what test automation strategy means to your organization?
Yeah, sure, Afreen. So, in my opinion, like test automation strategy is a very comprehensive plan, which outlines like how you are going to leverage automation to ensure the quality and reliability of your software. It's a small part of a much larger test strategy. Okay, so it's kind of a document which you share with your team and you kind of explain, okay, what tools and technologies they are going to use for test automation, what metrics they are going to capture, and you define some kind of frameworks and what types of testing will be performed. So overall, I think the goal of our test automation strategy is to increase the testing efficiency and deliver products with better quality and speed. In my organization, we follow this traditional test automation um, pyramid, which consists of three layers. So bottom one is a unit test, and then middle one is service test or integration test, and top layer is end-to-end test. So like it's in pyramid shape, so there will be a lot of unit tests. So mostly developers write these unit tests, but then we try to, as like most of the business logic remains in the backend or in terms of services or APIs. So we try to focus more on API testing, API automation, and we try to validate all our business logic through API, and then through UI, it's flaky, it's the automation is flaky, it's very expensive kind of thing. Like you need to spend a lot of effort to build UI automation, and then it's time taking as well. So we focus only on end-to-end test automation through UI, and we try to test all the business logic through the API. And we always keep some room for manual testing, because nothing can replace exploratory testing, which your experienced testers can bring with all the domain knowledge they have.
Nice. Interesting. Could you also add some insights on, because with respect to team specific requirements, how do you tailor your automation strategy so that it aligns and fits properly with your team specific requirements?
Correct. Yeah. So test automation strategy is something like which is not like one size fits all kind of thing. So, and as you know, like it's a very big upfront investment. Like you need to invest in automation engineers, tools and technologies. Maybe they are reskilling, right? And but the returns are realized over a long term. Okay, it's not immediately realized. So when you create a test automation strategy for your team, you need to have a goal, right? Some kind of objective. So it should align with your organization's goal. It could be a quality organization or like your organization as well. It could be anything. It could be maybe delivering software at a faster speed. It could be reducing the spend on the testing, or maybe improve the test coverage. So you should have a clear objective, like what is the objective of your test automation strategy, and it should align with your organization's objective. And then I think you need to understand the tools and technologies which you are going to use, which languages you will use for automation, which frameworks you will use. Will you build a new automation framework or something ready-made available you use? So all those things will be like while deciding these tools and technologies, you need to understand what is your team's core strengths are. So because it's a like reskilling is a big cost, and it's a time-consuming effort also. So always keep in mind like what is your team's strength is before choosing the tools and technologies. It's very like tempting to go for some new tools or very fancy looking kind of stuff, but always see like what works for you, what will work for your team, what is practical for you, go for that. In my organization, like particularly in one of my previous organization, what happened, like we got one brownfield application, and there was no test automation at all. All the testing was manual. Even the test cases were in Excel. So we had this task in hand to automate, improve the automation coverage, basically bring automation into practice. Now for a brownfield application, it's a mammoth task. Like you don't know where to start with, because there will be thousands of cases, and if they are not properly organized, it's very difficult to even prioritize them, like what to automate first. So so we basically decided, okay, we need to start with high priority cases for each feature, so that we need to organize. We had to move to test case management tool, basically test management tool. And like we defined the priority, and we grouped the test cases based on functionality features, so that we know, okay, for each feature these are the P1s, and we'll focus on those P1s first. So we'll do the horizontal coverage before we go for vertical coverage, so that we cover all the functionality, all the bread and butter first, before we go for like negative test or edge cases, those kind of scenarios. So I think this is one of the approach I think we can take for brownfield applications.
Testing align automation strategy should always cater to team's requirements, the skill set, and even the application or product that you're actually defining the strategy for. Right. Santiago, how about at FI? How do you define test automation strategy in your org?
Yes, so I want to point out that to F5 as a company right now, automation it's a key part of a transformation we are going through in F5, not only on the test practices but across all the company. We want to start being more efficient in all different areas like reporting, permission requests, sales, and everything. But to put a focus on the test automation strategy, how we define it is our main plan in order to make our testing efforts faster and more reliable every time. With automation, we get the benefit that the tests are always objective. There's no room for gray areas, so it's either a pass or fail. So that will give us the capability to constantly be accurate on our tests, to not have these hands-on situations where sometimes some things may get left out. Also, by having a better organization of our test plan, like same as Amit explained, like identifying test cases and all, implementing coding of automation scripts to make it faster, and the use of CI/CD tools to have a faster and more reliable releases across all these new code and new features which are getting implemented in our applications. And with this plan in place, we have been able to identify bugs or any issues in lower environments faster than we were doing before implementing automation. And as new code is deployed, we are able to identify it before all the code gets into production environment.
Right. In the lower environments itself, you're able to identify those bugs.
Yes, correct.
It's very nice. And also, right, you must have different teams working on different products and, different applications for which, you need to craft your automation strategy in such a way that it is meeting the needs. How do you craft an automation strategy?
Yes. So the first of all, I'd say each project has their own needs, and you need to focus on the needs of every project depending on the technologies you're using, which tools you are actually accessible to them, right? So once having your the needs into place, for us in the F5 we had a challenge because every team was having standalone projects. So every team was doing their own thing, their own way of doing things, their own way of creating test cases, their own coding language, their own frameworks. Everything was kind of split across the company. So for us to come up with a strategy, we decided to standardize the ways of work across teams, having naming conventions for test cases, structures on how to create a test case, thinking already that automation will come as a second phase of that. And then we started to share a common framework across teams. We're still yet to achieve what the best plan is, which is let's say having a common library and standalone projects, but we're getting on that part. And not only on the test automation is important, it is also important to do it on the functional approach, right? To identify rightly what can be automated, what cannot be automated, and make the right decisions in time. And on the automation front is all these new scripts will help us to get faster on the automation of any new features coming in, and and once we will not automate them until they are QA approved. That's currently one of the things we're following across projects now.
Rightly said. And also the other thing that we can, all remember in terms of crafting an automation strategy is to make that conscious decision, right? As to when do you want to automate this, right? Do you want to automate it before, if you have all the requirements in place, or you want to, take the later approach where you want to be sure that the product is stable and you have all the scenarios lined up, and then you want to pick up the automation. So that is also one pointer that we can all consider when we are crafting an automation strategy. So before we move on, let's gauge our audience experience. Please take the poll question on your screen. Right. So we just spoke about having test cases in picture and having the prioritization assigned to all those test cases, right? Being a QA, we spent a lot of time in creating these test cases and constructing test suites, and we have eventually evolved from managing these test cases manually to a more structured format. Right, Amit, could you share some experiences, right, for your transition from manual test case management to a more structured approach?
Yeah, sure. So as I was explaining in the previous question that when we had the task to automate a prompt feed application which had like thousands of cases, like Excel was the tool which was being used to manage the test cases. And like test case is the backbone, or it's the most granular level of logical unit in your test design, right? Um, so Excel is not a right tool for it. It's a great tool in itself, but not a right tool for test case management, because like you cannot generate reports, you cannot um, trace, you cannot have traceability, right? Or even the test case is like continuously you need to revise, right, based on the new features and functionality. So regression suite you need to continuously maintain. You may need to see the history. Okay, what was the test case earlier? What is it now? If you want to do any audit, like you cannot do it with Excel. It's very difficult. Like you can do it all those things, but like achieving those things is a like it's in itself is a big project. Um, when you do execution, like you store test results. So if you store it in Excel, for every release, you create a different test plan. You store the results in Excel, um, and you cannot see the trend of the test case results. Like basically, if you want to see, okay, this test case, if it is failing in this release, what was the outcome in last release or previous release? Is it a flaky test? Was it which is like intermittent to failing in every release, or it's a very stable, robust case which failed in only this release? So those kind of decisions you cannot take once you use this manual way of managing the test cases. So we decided to move to one of the test management tool. Um, so you can consider, like, if you use manual way of managing the test case, it's like you're developing an application, but you don't use a source control system. Okay, consider like multiple developers are working on the same code base, but they are storing files in their local, and all the things about merging, complexities about merging and versioning, um, reviews, all of those things. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. It's an obvious choice to move to a test management tool instead of using the test case manually. So we took that decision, and then it's saving us a lot of effort and human errors we were making earlier.
Very nice. Very well articulated insights on need for managing your test cases efficiently, right? We at BrowserStack have recently gone GA with test management to address these challenges as well. With that, let's take another poll question. Please take the poll question on your screen. Awesome. So let's talk about, agile principles, that in today's fast-paced development environments, agile principles are encouraging testing in tandem with development. How do you think we can strike the right balance between agile practices in test automation and also making sure that we are aligning with the development teams and ensuring the testing is happening without compromising the quality of the product? Santiago, would you like to share some insights on this?
Yes, thanks, Afrin. So I think overall, like with all this continuous change, which is sort of the agile model to keep adding things after every 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the length of the sprints every team has defined, it's certainly a challenge, especially for automation, since most teams will not have the capability to have like complete engineers fully dedicated to automation, since you may be participate in a hybrid model, doing manual testing and automation and API automation, and everything goes through to that. So I think some good things to do and to take into consideration is, once you're building your test cases, consider them, all of them, as they will be automated. So try to have single validation points for them, so that's easier for you to split between test cases. And also identify test the scenarios which have a greater impact to the application itself, right? That way you can identify them as a higher priority, not only for automation, but also for manual testing. And you may have a separate automation priority as well.
Mhm.
And then once you have all that in place, a well-structured test plan is the basis of a better automation, I'd say. Now that you have them analyzed, identified automation candidates, set then a priority for automation.
Mhm.
And I'd say also, once you have all the automation in place and all QA approved, you start moving into higher environments for testing. And then you can use scheduled runs in any CI/CD pipeline. For us, we do it through ADO, and we have a continuous monitoring of those test cases. We do daily runs,
Mhm.
and now actually we started to use, since a few months back, BrowserStack to reduce our execution times in pipeline and be more efficient as well on that end.
Interesting. So continuous automation, it goes in parallel along with the development in your case.
Right. In some things, I'd say we kind of shift left, even try to put automation as a priority when we have large features and we want to, which we may take 3 or 4 sprints for them to go to production. We may be doing some early automation as well on those.
Awesome. Amazing. Amit, how do you strike the right balance between automation and development in parallel?
Yeah, I think it is very important to strike the balance between agile practices, development teams, and then test automation. As like Santiago said, shift left is one of the approach. So we try to do start test automation as early as possible in the cycle, and that's like practical to do for generally for API testing, because API automation, because for API, like you define the contract earlier and then you have a defined contract, you can easily write the automation using the request response and error codes, everything, if it is in place. So you can write the automation, and once the service is developed, you get the bill, you can directly use it to run your automation. So I think that works for us. So we are kind of trying to do the API automation along with the development, and then do the execution later on. For UI, generally, like we follow N+1 approach. So basically, in one sprint, development is done along with development. Test team is working on the test design, and then once they get the build, they do some manual testing as well. And the next sprint, they try to do automation. So basically, test team always in the catch-up mode for UI automation. But I think it's very like to sustain in long term with this approach. I think it's very important, like you don't release products in production without having the test automation in place. Because otherwise, if it goes into technical debt, it will always be a case for further sprints, further releases, and you will always be in catch-up mode. So you need to talk to your program managers and Scrum Master to make sure like it is part of definition of done for each user story. So each user story will be moved to production only if you have the functional testing sign off through manual testing, plus you have the automation testing also in place.
So you do not deliver the features. You make sure that at least in the next sprint, we have those features automated and added to the suite, right? In some of the teams as well, we follow a similar process where API automation has to be done in parallel whenever you're crafting new APIs, and you're making sure that you're adding it to the suite. And when it comes to UI automation, or let's say desktop automation as well, right? You need to make sure that after you decide what are the priority candidates which are giving you good ROI, we add them to the suite, make sure that the coverage is there, and ensure the backlog is not getting increased, right? Not especially for the ROI cases or the P0 or P1 cases to say.
Yeah, that's correct. That's all we also do. Like we focus on those cases which will be part of our regression suite later on.
Right. Awesome. So all of this is part of the automation strategy. But when it comes to selecting the right tools and frameworks, could you help us sharing some insights out as to what key factors to consider during the evaluation process? Especially in terms of ensuring long-term suitability and alignment with your team needs. Santiago, can you explain what is FI's approach in this regard?
Yes, thanks, Afrin. So I'd say for everyone who attended the call, the key part or the first thing to do is to identify the business needs from your project, from your application, and that way you can start to focus on different options and evaluate different options inside in the market is basically really large across all that. Here at F5, when we started this project on the automation, I can tell you we had a few key elements we needed to focus. The first one is we needed to have a framework which we could run across multiple environments, since we have QA environment, UAT environment, and definitely production, where we only run Sanity occasionally when it's needed. That is definitely on demand. We don't run on a schedule, and for that we also needed to have minor configuration to switch between those environments, since every environment may have their own database connection, their own URL, and all. We needed an extended browser compatibility because we are a front-end application, so our customers interact directly with MyF5, which is the application we work on, and also to have a framework that had the parallel execution capability to speed up our testing, since our test suite or the automation suite was over 800 test cases, right? So as more as we could run in parallel, that was a big need. So once we came up and identified those things, the first thing we implemented the framework based on Selenium WebDriver, since it has a large browser capability and compatibility across, and also you can switch around different environments and all. Once we had that into place and everything was working, we got in sync with BrowserStack to integrate BrowserStack to our suite, and we expanded our test coverage significantly. And the best news when we were doing the POC is that we were able to keep our existing scripts without minor changes on the way we created the driver instance. So before implementing BrowserStack, we were running our tests in Windows and Chrome as the only browser we were doing. Once BrowserStack was brought in, we are now running our tests in different Windows versions, different Mac OS versions as well. And we are currently supporting 3 browsers, the ones our customers have more incidents of connecting to MyF5, which are Chrome, Edge, and Firefox.
Thank you, Santiago, for providing valuable insights into your team's positive experience with BrowserStack. It's really reassuring to hear how beneficial it has been for your testing process. Now, before we continue, we have another poll question for our audience. Oh, interesting. There's so many BrowserStack customers already on this call. Awesome. All right. These days, as we all know, that organizations are usually striving towards anytime deployments, and they are moving towards CI/CD. They encounter various challenges. Amit, what common challenges have you faced in implementing automation in this context?
Yeah, thanks, Afrin. So this is something like we are currently working on. So as you know, like continuous integration, continuous deployment. So continuous testing is a part of continuous delivery, right? So you need to do the automation testing. You need to do basically functional testing as well as performance testing as part of pipeline to prove like performance, the function behaves correctly as per the specification, as well as the performance is not degraded, right? So while implementing this in my team, like I'm facing a couple of challenges. One is the flakiness of the test. So if you have some tests which are flaky, like which can fail sometime, which pass sometime, you are not absolutely sure you will not rely on your result of the build pipeline, right? Because when you are going ahead with CI/CD pipeline for deployment to production or maybe UAT environment, so basically you are relying on your automation testing, right? And if your automation tests are not reliable, they can fail. There are false negatives. So that means your build pipeline will fail unnecessarily because your test script is giving you incorrect result. Or if they are false positives, you will leak defects in production, right? So basically, we need to remove this flakiness. So we are spending more time on finding out why this flakiness is there. Is it due to some test data issue or maybe environment issue or something within the test or data conflicts? Because we like in CI/CD, like you are like time bound also because you need to complete the build within the time. So that means you will be running a lot of parallel tests. So when you do parallel testing, data conflict is a common problem. So that also results in flakiness of the test. So that is one of the challenge which we are working on. Another is like including performance testing as part of CI/CD pipeline. As you know, like performance testing is a costly affair, right? So you need to have a scaled up environment, right? And then the testing time duration should be good enough. Generally, we do it for an hour, right? To just get the actual performance. And there might be need to generate a lot of data in advance and maybe clean up after the test. So it's a costly affair. So having it in the pipeline, and then if you have like multiple builds during the day, then if it fails, it's very difficult to basically get a successful release with performance testing also done successfully. So what we are trying to do is like this is something work in progress. We have not achieved it, but some of the ideas or things we are trying out is like based on the feature or change, right, which we are trying to push to production. We'll decide whether performance testing is required or not. So it's going to be a flag-driven test in the CI/CD pipeline. So we'll take a call whether to invoke it or not. Another is invoke it along with your functional test in parallel. So while your functional tests are going on, your performance testing is also happening. Obviously, you need to consider the environmental dependencies. Like it has to be a separate environment, or if it is not separate same environment, then the impact of functional testing should be negligible. So you need to take care of all those things in mind. So invoke it in the parallel so that you save time. Suppose your functional test takes 30 minutes and performance test takes 1 hour 20 minutes. If you do it in parallel, overall it's going to take 1 hour 20 minutes instead of 1 hour 50 minutes. So that is another approach. Third one is like you continuously monitor the performance result. So in your CI/CD pipeline, you need to build the intelligence. We are trying to do that. That if you like when we are starting a performance test, we'll keep an eye on the error rate. If it is already too high, right? If it is beyond the threshold limit, we'll just take a call whether to abort the test or continue with it. Okay. Similarly, you can take call on the SLA, right? If it is too high, maybe something is wrong with the environment, or error rate is high, maybe your either environment is wrong, or you maybe test data is not proper, or something is bad. So you can instead of waiting till the end of the pipeline and then initiate the process again, you can take a call immediately and fix the issue and then restart the pipeline. So these are some of the things we are considering and some of the challenges we are facing, and still kind of trying out solutions.
Nice. To add on to what Amit said, another way to handle the long executions that have in place, right? We can have sanity suit in place, P1 suit. So in case if there are any failures at the earlier stages itself, you'll be able to analyze them before you proceed forward with the complete suit testing, right? So that is also one way that you can handle it. So
yeah, just to add on to that, we did one more thing in my previous organization. So especially for API testing, we created a kind of health check kind of test, which will do a health check of all the APIs, all the services that are running or not. If the health check is successful, then only we are invoking our functional suite. So that is also one of the approach we follow.
Interesting. Thank you, Amit. Building on what Amit mentioned earlier, right? Aligning your automation strategy with your organization's broader goals is crucial. Right. Santiago, could you share specific examples from your experience where aligning your strategy with business objectives had a significant impact?
Sure thing. Thanks, Afrin. So yeah, so I think our the organization main goal, as always, is to get a better customer experience in any of the areas we participate. So our key goal or our key target as test automation engineers or test engineers is to reduce the customer support tickets received, right? Because that will be because of a misexperience or something that is taking place before. So for us, I think, as I mentioned before, like having these pipelines being part of our CI/CD integrated, we are able to, on every release, not only in production but after every environment, from the code goes from QA, and then we are running daily tests for QA environments, since it has more code inputs every time. And then for the UAT environment, we also keep continuously monitoring, because we have the other services or dependencies which we interact, and we don't want any of their deploys to affect ours. So that way we are reducing the bugs or the customer tickets incidency in production. And I know for a fact that for F5, once automation started to gain more maturity, the customer support tickets were reduced significantly from before the implementation of that. Also, I think we also mentioned this. It is important for us to focus on when big features are introduced. Again, shifting left is important, because by the time the new feature, if it's a large feature, right, like 3 or 4 sprints, as much as you can get automated ahead, will ease you in the regression before it goes to production, and also it will give you a higher impact on that. Our way work, I'd say we start from when the new feature is introduced, we focus mainly on the functional testing manually, along with accessibility, since I mentioned we are a front-end application. So we need to make sure our customers, all of our customers, have the best experience on using our applications. We get responsive testing, screen recording, and screen reader, and all that important. So once we get that QA approved, even if that feature is not yet moved into production, right? We can actually get it QA approved and stays in QA or UAT, and then we start the automation of it. So by the time this gets into production, we get less customer incidency with all these new features.
Interesting. Speaking of impact, right? Measuring the impact of your strategy is very essential. We have our automation in place. We select the right tools and frameworks that are required in your automation strategy, and align them with the team specific goals as well. But how do you measure the impact of your automation strategy? Amit, could you share what are the key indicators do you usually track to measure success?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Safrin. So I will divide into 2 parts. Basically, one is the metrics you want to track to measure the progress, right? Progress of your automation. Another is like how do you measure the effectiveness of it? So these are 2 different things. So I have created something called quality engineering maturity model in my current organization. So as part of it, like I try to capture a lot of different parameters which help me answer the progress as well as effectiveness of the test automation. So and it's not only for test automation; it's basically for overall testing practices. So start with, like I capture like do we have a well-defined integration suite? I ask to all my teams, do we have a well-defined integration suite? All the test cases are prioritized or not? Can we clearly say which are our P0s, which are P1, which are P2? I think that is very necessary, because for starting automation, we need to have a clear scope, right? What test cases we are going to target. And then this regression suite, like, should be is it like reviewed internally as well as with your product teams or business analysts, right? So they are the one who are giving the requirements. So it's very important to have a walkthrough and get it reviewed or kind of sign off from them. Okay, so is that being done or not? So these are 2 matrices I think everyone needs to follow to understand, like even for manual testing as well, right? This is the basic building block. Then coming to automation, we already have the grouping of cases, right? So first we focus on high priority cases, that is P0s and P1. So we capture like how much test automation coverage we have for P0, P1 cases. So that is like basically what all automatable cases you have, or out of which how many you have automated. So based on that, we calculate the test coverage. Then we do the same for overall regression suite, not just P0, P1. So these are two of the matrices we capture on release basis to see how we are progressing. Is our regression suite automation coverage decreasing or increasing with the releases? Ideally, it should increase or at least remain at the same percentage level. That means your team is able to live in this agile way of working, right? Then coming to like similar kind of metrics I capture for performance testing as well. So these are some of the metrics I capture to track the progress of automation and define the maturity of quality engineering. But coming to effectiveness, the overall effectiveness, if you ask anyone, I think the most common answer would be like how many defects we are leaking to production. So how many defects are being found by customers is one of the biggest metric which we should capture and try to reduce the number of incidents as well as customer found defects in the production. Okay, that talks about the overall effectiveness, but specifically talking about test automation. So like I think everyone will agree, right? I think manual testing is also very important. We cannot do everything with automation, right? So both are complementary to each other. So how many defects are being found through automation testing defines the effectiveness of your automation, right? There might be a case like your automation is passing every time 100%, but still there are a lot of bugs being found and then a lot of bugs being leaked to production. That means your automation is not finding bugs. It's kind of ineffective. You are not having the right coverage. So I think this is one of the metric which defines the effectiveness of the test automation.
Right, very well said, Amit. And with the increasing complexity of modern test automation applications, right, the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in software testing is also gaining prominence. Santiago, do you see AI being leveraged for test automation strategy? Can you think of any specific use cases that can be tackled right now using AI or ML?
Yes, I think AI itself has been groundbreaking across all industries now, not only in test automation but across everything. I think AI it's coming here to stay, and it's the main idea is to make us more efficient. So as long as we are able to integrate their side and our experience, I think that's when we get the most benefit of it. So I think one of the key things, personally, I think we will get into with machine learning and AI is going to be a better refinement of the information we have. So better reporting, better scenario analytics. We may be, after we keep doing running scripts daily basis, our history of execution is higher every time. So I think the AI will help us to get better analytics on that end. Also, this could help us potentially on identifying potential risk of failures before we get into there, and also probably some different tools that helps us to do a better code coverage on what we are testing actually from the whole application, right? Currently here at F5, we are working on a proof of concept for BrowserStack test observability and also the test accessibility, right? And I think this is a good game for us, since test observability will help us to reach and identify these flaky test cases that we get constantly, and also analytics by browser and other information.
Right. Thank you, Santiago, for mentioning BrowserStack test observability. Our team is actively working towards leveraging ML to help determine flaky tests for better results. It also helps in, reducing the analysis time. Right, you get to see all the flaky test or the unique test. You can check out the link in the chat to know more for all the attendees. Awesome. And before we open the floor to the questions, right, is there, Amit and Santiago, what is one key takeaway you would like our attendees to remember about crafting a successful test automation strategy?
I would say like test automation is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So tailor your test automation strategy based on your project, organization, and schools. Don't do it just for the sake of automation. Measure the effectiveness of it and strive to improve the coverage, or basically the goal is to deliver the software faster with better quality. So focus on the goal rather than the numbers. That is my, I think, one takeaway from this session.
Interesting. Thank you, Amit. Santiago?
Yes, for us, I think that where we found more success in F5 is to, when we are starting with this new implementation and strategy, is to find like measurable performance indicators, like the execution time you want to achieve, device compatibility, like, and all those things that you have. Once you discuss this with your implementation along with your manager or that, you can actually come from ideation to implementation of that, right? And some of the key takeaways, I say, once you have your test success criteria defined, define a roadmap and milestones. When do you want to achieve those, right? So we were able to, for us to implement BrowserStack, it went, I think it took us 3 months from full integration, and we came from zero. So with this, having these clear target lines, it's easier for you to get an achievement on time.
Thank you both for sharing your invaluable insights. Now let's turn to our audience for their questions. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have about test automation strategy. Let's look at the Q&A. Okay, we have a question. Is the automation strategy same as deciding automation scope? Is CI/CD for testers also as a code in the application is deployed, and without CI/CD access, dev teams can inform testers? Amit, you want to take that?
You want to repeat the question, nothing?
Sure. Is the automation strategy same as deciding the automation scope? Is CI/CD for testers?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There is a second part to this question.
Okay.
Let's take the first part first.
Okay. Yeah, I would say like in test automation strategy is like a very high level document, which generally is not created on only for or for a particular product or one application. It can be created for multiple applications. So it guides the team to basically on the types of testing they should do for that type of application, or the kind of tools and technologies they should use, what metrics to capture. So basically, a high-level goal is kind of defined, high-level scope is defined, but there should be a detailed test plan for each release and each application separately, which will have the detailed plan, detailed scope and out of scope thing, because it depends on release to release also. So on a high level, it is defined in test strategy, but not at the kind of low level.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's take another question. When people say automation, what exactly we have to do consideration to automate? As we know, we have many to many levels to cases we write for one project. I think people are curious about, what considerations you have to take when you're automating, because you have UI, you have functional, you have performance. I think we covered a bit of it in the session. You want to take that, Santiago?
Yes, Afrin. So I think overall, I think all areas are important. At the end, that's why we even have like own specialist on each area. But I think for us or anywhere, it's important to identify what's the expected outcome that you would like to do. Like some scenarios are better to run API tests than actually UI tests, because the thing of UI is you may get loading issues because by the time maybe the response is lower at certain times, especially in lower environments. So how we focus here is depending on the outcome. Like if you want to test a form submit, for example, that may have, I don't know, like 20 different outcomes, maybe easier, and if you only want to test the outcome, maybe easier to do it through API automation. So you can run all those 20 scenarios in a matter of, I don't know, like 3-4 seconds, right? And those, I think for CI/CD, API is more friendly because it doesn't take like longer time during execution and it's more reliable. If you still want to do UI automation in CI/CD, it's definitely just define a sanity suite, which it doesn't take a lot of time to execute, and definitely have a a pass rate of 90%,
Mhm.
right? Otherwise, if you keep waiting for the 100%, you may be delaying some of those releases. For performance as well, I think it's good to handle to the performance team, and it's really important to take it into consideration. Otherwise, at peak points, your application may fall short.
Let's take another question. Is there a way to calculate code coverage of automation test with respect to web application code? Amit,
Yeah,
you want to
I can take that up thing. So we have done that in one of my previous organizations. So basically, generally people relate code coverage to unit testing because there are a lot of tools like SonarQube and other which can once you create the build and you have those dashboards, it can easily tell you what kind of code coverage you have through unit testing. But how to calculate the code coverage through functional testing, that can also be done. We did it for one of the project, like you can, it was basically Java based project. We use Jacoco to instrument the binaries and then before deploying into test environment and then run the functional testing. So basically what you can do is like you instrument the, basically you instrument the code or binaries deploy into test environment. Then you can do whatever testing you do, not just automation, but also manual testing and even unit testing. So it will tell you the overall code coverage for all your types of testing you perform, and you will be more confident on maybe you are able to achieve some 60-70% through automation, but rest you are doing through manual. So having an overall coverage through your for your testing, I think that will give you a good idea at code level what you are covering. But that's just like one of the stat. Don't confuse it with functional coverage. So that is another angle you need to look at.
Interesting. Thank you, Amit. So before we take more questions, I would like to mention that we are nearing the 1 hour mark of our webinar. We are keen to gauge your interest in some of our upcoming webinars. So we have a quick poll question for you. Awesome. Thank you for your participation. We still have a few more questions to cover. So for those of you who would like to continue with us, please feel free to stay tuned. Right. The next question. What will be the automation testing strategy for web-based applications where UI is very flaky and elements are not properly aligned or coded? But application-wise, strangely, it's stable to perform manual testing and can't fix the code level as it might affect business. How do we define a strategy for this type of scenarios without affecting the business? Let me know if you want me to repeat the question.
I have one thought on it. So I think that is a common problem.
Yeah.
So I mean the UI, as I said earlier, right, it's very flaky. So you cannot. There are synchronization issues. Locator keep on changing. A lot of issues you face like once you build an automation. So one of the thing you can follow is to agree with your dev team to have a kind of dedicated automation ID for all your elements so that your locator don't keep on changing. So that is one of the approach we are following for one of our application, and it's quite helpful. Yeah, that is one take from me.
Yes, I agree with Amit on this. Like sometimes, I say with all this dynamic development that we have in UI, like even developers, sometimes so the code is generated as information is pulled from databases or so. So if you keep seeing a certain test case becomes flaky because of loading issues or misidentification of the right element, it's definitely best thing to do is to talk with your developers to get, if not the unique ID for a table, let's say, just for the table itself, and then you can iterate through that inside your code. You may not have a unique identifier for each element of that, but once you get the major element, you can iterate through it, and that's one way to go as well. And definitely define wait time limit, especially for front-end UI, In lower environments, you may set it, I don't know, like for 1 minute. If in 1 minute that element is not loaded, you just kill your test, because it could, otherwise you may be just waiting there indefinitely.
Interesting. So we have another question. How will API automation help when there are also things to check like mails and notifications after an important action has been made?
Can you repeat the second part of the question now?
How will API automation help when there are also things to check like mails and notifications, right? It's part of the scenario. After an important action has been made, you need to also test the mails and notifications. So how do you handle this scenario in API automation?
I did that in my two of my previous organizations. So as part of my test automation framework, we created a library to get the content from mail. Okay, so read the inbox dynamically through code, and basically you can like some of the kind of usable functions we wrote. Okay, we need to read the mail which starts with this subject or which has this subject and which is the most recent mail. So with all those functions, we were able to retrieve the mail content and we could do validation on it. So it's all achievable if you, I think, depending on the requirement and application and in the scenarios, you should consider having some reusable functions in your test automation framework so that it's easy for your automation testers to actually use those instead of thinking how to do it actually.
Thank you. Let's take another question. We still have 2 minutes. Okay. Is it a good practice to have different automation frameworks for the same project? For example, some parts are covered with Java Selenium, others with Python and Selenium, and some UI parts are covered with Cypress, etc. What is your preference?
Yeah, I'd say it's okay as long as the approach on every selection of scenarios or test cases is different. Like if you want to cover UI, I'd suggest to keep all in the same framework, because otherwise you may be falling on duplicity on method recurrency or even on web element identification. But if one framework, for example, the Python one, is focused on API, that's okay. You can focus that on API itself. The Selenium only on UI, and you may have another one for performers, or even you can say that even 2 UI projects are separate, but it's okay as long as they focus on different areas of the application or 2 different applications, I'd say. Okay.
Yeah, so it is okay to...
Another angle to it, basically. Sorry, Afrin.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So whatever Santiago said, I completely agree. Plus, also there could be an organization direction also if they are thinking about shift left, and they are maybe trying to use the same technology which dev team is using to build the application, so that dev team later on dev team can also pitch in, help you maintain the test cases, and testers can focus more on exploratory testing plus end-to-end testing. So sometimes they want you to use the same technology or same language in which the application is developed. For example, it's a Node.js, Node.js based application or AngularJS. So they want you to use the JavaScript, maybe TypeScript or something to, they can ask you to use the similar kind of language so that there is no learning curve for a dev team, and they can also basically help you in maintaining the cases. So that's another angle to it, but it depends on like her organization's goal, their approach, and what is the their approach for long term, in related to shift left or yeah. That's it.
Thank you so much, Amit. We are on time. We know we couldn't answer all the questions in the limited time. We have taken a note of your questions, and we rest assured that we'll get back to you after the event. Awesome. As we wrap up today's webinar, I want to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us today. Your engagement and participation have made this webinar truly valuable. Stay tuned for updates on our upcoming webinars and events. We are committed to providing you with even more opportunities for learning and growth. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.